It's time for Living Faith from the Russellville Christian Center. Join us as we study the uncompromised Word of God and how it can be applied to our everyday lives.
This past 2 weeks, attacks come in waves. Sometimes we'll study spiritual authority and spiritual warfare, but attacks come in waves. You'll see this, especially if you're sitting in the church office, you'll see it. Waves of lack and poverty will come through, waves of strife, waves of sickness and disease, waves of marital attack. The last couple of weeks has been waves of marital attack. And when we see that coming and we see it happening, you know, last week I was trying to teach something else and I kept going back to marriage. And then it all started unfolding before me the next week. So if you came into my office or called me or texted me or messaged me or however the many ways of contact that you have with me or anybody else in the church, don't think that this message is about you. Know that it's for you and that it wasn't planned that way. God had us go in here last week and it was headed us in this direction. And marriage is spiritual. Marriage is spiritual. Relationships are spiritual. But marriage is spiritual. And it's not something that you go see somebody else for because you think that it's not relevant to the church. It's relevant to the church. And whoever you seek needs to be coming from a biblical basis because marriage is set up on biblical laws. And so I want us to go to Amos 3. I put it in your notes. You'll laugh when you see it because you could tell I wanted you to get the point. Amos 3:3 says, "Can two walk together except they be agreed?" That's from the King James Version. I'm going to read it through different versions. Do two people walk hand in hand if they aren't going to the same place? Do two walk together except they make an appointment and have agreed? Is it possible for two to go walking together if not by agreement? Can two people walk together without agreeing on the direction? Two people will not walk together unless they have agreed to do so. What a powerful statement. And this is where we are in marriage relationships. Now, if you're not married, you can apply this for future tense, section, or you can apply it to other relationships because a lot of the laws that come into marriage also apply in other relationships: communication, agreement, forgiveness. So you can make it work in your life, I promise you. Here's the deal. Together is better. Together is better. Now I'm going to put a small disclaimer at the bottom of this message. If you're being beat, go see an attorney. Okay? If there's abuse, go see an attorney. Other than that, together is better. And I was sitting at ladies' night out that we had at the Smith Family Lodge. And I was visiting with a lady there who, when she first started coming here, and I'm hoping sometime she'll give her testimony, when she first started coming here, I can't remember what year she said it was. I want to say it was 2007. She came here to visit with my dad because her marriage was over. We're still married, but it was over. And they reached hands across the table and prayed. I think Dad may have paid the gentleman a visit. I'm not sure. But something set into motion, and over never came. Their finances have been multiplied. They've initiated their own successful business to the point that they were able to leave their other jobs. Everything fell in line when marriage fell in line. And there's such a powerful scripture. It's not in your notes, but since Holy Spirit's taken us there, let's go there. 1 Peter, I'll have to kind of look a minute. I just read back over it this morning, but I didn't think I was going to use it. Okay, it's in 1 Peter chapter 3, and it's verse 7. It says, "Likewise, you husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge." Well, that's a loaded statement right there, isn't it? Your wife deserves some study. Research, study. Dwell with them according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life. Being heirs together of the grace of life. Why? That your prayers be not hindered. Look, if your marriage is not in line, and you're praying about your job, if your relationship's not in line and you're praying about your children, if your relationship's not in line and you're praying about fill in the blank, everything's hindered. Why? Because you're at the top of the food chain. You're the top. You're the order from which everything else comes under your marriage, not over your marriage. You're praying to kill a big buck and your marriage ain't right? It's deer season. You've got to put it in there. Marriage comes, where I was going with that, marriage comes above the hobbies. And you think, oh, that's silly. Oh, it's very, very real. If you've ever listened to Jimmy and Karen Evans, highly suggest them. Google them. Listen to Jimmy and Karen Evans. They're great. They're easy to listen to. They're fun to listen to. But man, golf was his God. I mean, he put golf above his marriage. And you could say, well, that's probably because he didn't want to be at home. Because, look, let's get rid of the excuses and let's do what's right. Marriage is at the top of the chain. Everything comes under that. That wasn't in the plan. Genesis 2:18, you don't have to turn there. You're all familiar with this. God said, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helpmeet for him. From the beginning, in a perfect world, the garden was perfect. There was no anything wrong. And God still thought man needed help. He still thought two were better than one. In a perfect world. Well, what about in an imperfect world? Even in Luke 10, and Kevin's not here this morning, I don't see him. Kevin Schlitt and I were talking last week. He'd come into the office, and we were talking about how God used the power of two. When he was sending out disciples to do ministry, he didn't send them out alone. Luke 10:1 tells us he sent them out by twos. There's power in two. Ecclesiastes chapter 4, you can turn there because we're going to read, it's in your notes in the Amplified, which is what I'm reading from. I'm going to do quite a bit of reading there, starting in verse 8. Ecclesiastes chapter 4. He says, here is one alone, no one with him. He neither has child nor brother, yet there is no end to all of his labor, neither is his eye satisfied with riches, neither does he ask, for whom do I labor and deprive myself of good? Who am I sacrificing for? This is also vanity, it's emptiness, it's falsity, it's futility. Yes, it is painful effort and unhappy business. Two are better than one, because they have a good, more satisfying reward for their labor. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. Again, if two lie down together, then they have warmth. But how can one be warm alone? And though a man might prevail against him who is alone, two will withstand him. If attack comes against you and you're standing alone, you can be overcome. But if attack comes against you and you have someone with you, the fight becomes different. The fight becomes different. God is for two. That's where I'm going. God is for two. He established two. He said that two is powerful. It is more powerful than one. Matthew 18. Starting in verse 19, reading out of the NIV, Jesus is speaking and he says, again, I tell you that if two of you on earth agree. Oh, well, wait a minute. There's our problem. We got two on earth disagreeing. The power is in the agreement. If two of you on earth agree about anything you ask for, It will be done for you by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 come together in my name, there am I with them. What a powerful statement. So you can see why the enemy has so attacked the marriage. Because if he's got the marriage attacked, then that weakens the whole family structure. Then they can go after the kids. Then the enemy can go after, then he's got an open door for the kids. I tell people all the time, I know I've been divorced. Rusty's been divorced. But I'm telling you, we're making this work. This is working because we've been on the other side of this. And there are doors open when there is divorce in the home. And we've got to think this through more than just for the moment. But what we've got to do is come to an agreement in order to have the power there. He says if the 2 of you can come into agreement, what do you want? What do you want to ask for? If you 2 can get an agreement, you can have it. If you 2 can come in agreement, I'm in the middle of it. Our trouble has been that whole agreement thing. It's pretty obvious to me that walking together in agreement is spiritual powerhouse. That's why the devil is called the accuser of the brethren, because his goal and his aim is to divide. And any enemy does that. They do that in the military. They do that on the basketball court. They do that on the football field. What do you think all those guys are up there blocking for? It works. It's a strategy that works. And we've played into the enemy's hand, letting him divide us from the power that God has set into motion, the power of 2. So today I really want to focus on these things. That if you read back through those verses we read, can 2 walk together except agreed? Do 2 people walk hand in hand if they aren't going to the same place? Do 2 people walk together except they make an appointment and have agreed? Is it possible for 2 to go walking together if not by agreement? Can 2 people walk together without agreeing in a direction? Move forward with agreement. The 2 words here that are important to me are walking in agreement. Anytime you take 2 people, I mean, you couldn't be any more different than me and Rusty. Really. I mean, people say, what do y'all have in common? God. That's about it. But you know, if you're going to have your choices on what we have in common, we've got the best. We've got the best. I like to fish for about 15 minutes. No, I like to fish if they're biting. I'll stay out there all day long with you if they're biting. But just to sit out there and beg something to come bite a plastic something, I'm just not into that. It's just, I mean, I could go home and do laundry. I like to catch, not fish. That's what I tell him. I'm not out hunting fish. I want to catch fish. The key word is catch. So we don't have a lot in common. I hear this from people all the time who are going through divorce. We don't have anything in common. Well, we only need one thing. He goes fishing. I go see the grandbabies. He goes fishing. I go do something. I meet one of y'all at the coffee shop. He goes fishing. I go, you know what? It's okay. And the reason it's okay because the one thing we have in common keeps everything else in check. So what do we have in common? What do you have in common? You do have something in common. And it's the most important thing you could have because we came from different worlds. He's from California. Let me get in the center section. Am I safe here? I'm from Arkansas. What can I get away with saying on that? Should I just leave it there unless I get in trouble with the rest of the family? Okay. His twins here. You're not seeing devil. His twins here. He didn't come from a home like mine. Far different. He wasn't taught about money the way I was taught about money. Far different. I came from a family that didn't divorce. He came from a family that did. It didn't make my family better, his family worse. The point here is we're going to have differences of opinion. We're not going to think the same. And I love what Tim Brooks says. You just can't say it any better than what he says. You don't need to marry somebody just like you. If you marry somebody just like you, there's no need for one of you. Somebody's unnecessary. I don't need you to be like me. I need you to think different than me. I am a tightwad. I got that from my father. He got that from his father. And I don't know, he probably got that from his father. I'm going to know where the money's going. I'm going to question you about where the money went. I'm going to see where it went. Oh, honey, I went by Bass Mafia today. I know. I pull up that bank account at least once a day, and I know exactly where that debit card has been. I know. Differences. But he, Lord help me not to regret this statement, is prying my hands and teaching me how to enjoy some of the blessings that God has given me. Now, he thinks that that blessing is a new four-wheeler for me. Amen. Yeah. He really thinks I enjoy those game cameras. Two different people. Different past. I'd been married before. He had been married before. And if you think that doesn't bring a whole lot of baggage along with it, you haven't read my novel. Different past. Different upbringings, different homes, different experiences, different personalities. I'm my dad, he's my mother. But you know, the good news about this is my mom and dad have been married for 58 years. Yeah. So we got a pretty good example. People say, oh, you know, you marry somebody like your dad. No, not if you're like your dad, you better not, because then you'll hurt each other. So I married somebody like my mother because I'm like my dad. But the good news is this can work. I need him. I need you. Your response is supposed to be, I need you too. Okay. But we take these two different people, we put them together in the same room after a beautiful ceremony, nice dress, nice ring. We put them together in the same room and we say, live happily ever after. Oh, the fun's just starting. Because, you know, his mother cooked, no, I'm not using you for this example, but if his mother cooked 3 meals a day and had it done and on the table and brought his food to him and had his bathwater running while he finished up eating, then, and that's not how your mother worked. She came home, and when she got home, she was worn out, and she taught the kids to do the work. I mean, is either way wrong? No. But it's different. And then you put these two people in the same room and say, figure out a way to live together. We're going to have some discussions to be in agreement. It's going to take some effort. Don't think because you have to constantly talk about things. We've been married 16 years now, and we're still having discussions about how I think and he thinks and finding a way to be in agreement. It's a constant. And from what I understand from mom and dad, or at least from what mom tells me, dad just says he's always right. But according to what mom and dad tell me, after 58 years, life changes. It changes. So just about the time you think you've got it figured out, kids come along. And then, okay, we work through that the way you think kids ought to be raised, the way I think kids ought to be raised. We work through that. We find the middle ground. We get in agreement. This is the way we're going to do this. Then about that time, the kids leave. And so there we are facing, so this conversation is never going to stop. Don't ever let it stop. Because we have to stay in agreement. Power is in the agreement. Decisions will have to be made. Somebody's going to have to make them. Somebody's not going to like them. You know what? That's okay. Because we've got a common goal. We're in agreement. We have a common goal. How are we going to spend the money? How are we going to raise the kids? What kind of house are we going to buy? How big does that house need to be? I mean, what kind of car do we need? How are we going to spend our time? How much time is okay to spend apart? How much time do we need to spend together? You're not going to agree on these things. You're going to have to come to an agreement on these things, which means everybody's going to have to be willing to keep the goal in mind and not the win. Where are we going to eat? Where do you want to eat? I don't know. Where do you want to eat? Okay, I want to go to La Huerta. Oh, well, I wasn't really feeling it for Mexican today. Do you know? I mean, we laugh about it. Really, any argument we have is about that silly if we keep the goal in mind. Seems like you're constantly hitting two pieces of metal together, or two hard heads together, two opinions together. Perfect. You're scriptural. Proverbs 27:17 tells us you use steel to sharpen steel. You don't do that by gently rubbing them together. Iron is sharpening iron. So maybe we've just perceived our discussions wrong. Maybe we've just perceived arguments wrong. Maybe they're iron sharpening iron. Maybe when we get through with this discussion, we're going to come up with the right answer for our family. You're refining. You're refining down to an answer. Keep at it. You know, most pastors won't tell you. Keep on with those arguments. Keep on with those, we like to call them discussions. Sometimes they're fights. Somebody's will against another person's will. Somebody's opinion against another. And yes, we're learning to keep all of that in the confines of respect and love. Something we're all working on, getting selfishness out and learning how to use our words, which is probably where we'll go next week. If I'm here, I may be gone next week, but if I'm here, we'll be talking about communication, words. There's a way to do this to keep from doing damage while we're getting to our destination, which we have to work on. But keep at it until you come to an agreement. But agreement's the goal. That's where the power is. Agreement. Go with me to Genesis chapter 11. And you may think, what does the Tower of Babel have to do with marriage? And then some of you will laugh when you think about it. The Tower of Babel. God's people not thinking right. It says, verse 1, Genesis 11. He says, and the whole earth was of one language. I have that highlighted. One language. And of one speech. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime they had for mortar. And they said, go to, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name. Now, every time they say, they said, I have that highlighted because a vision and a goal is being cast here. And that's what we have to do in our homes. We have to keep that goal and that vision and that aim in front of the people, the mate, the children, our friends, anybody that's around us that has to do with our family, has influence on our family. We're constantly having to keep that visual out in front of them through our words. They said, go, let us make a city and a tower whose top may reach into heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the whole face of the earth. And the Lord came down to see the city of the tower, which the children of men builded. God said, something's going on down there. We need to go take a look. That's pretty powerful. Behold, the people is one. I have that highlighted. The people is one. Not the people are one, because they're one. One is. One on are. One is. The people is one. And they have all one language highlighted. And this they began to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. They're one language. They are operating as one. And God saw the power in that, and He said, now, nothing that they've imagined will be kept back from them because of the power of one. When everybody in your household can get on the same page, we're fixing to get something done. Now, theirs was contrary to God. Ours is going to be in line with God. He said, let us go down. Let's confound their language. You know what? He didn't say, let's go down and knock their bricks over, Mitchell. Let's go down and knock down this tower. That wasn't where the power was. He said, let's confound their language. Let's get them where they're not communicating. So to break the power, God confounded their language so that they didn't understand each other. You know how many times you hear that in the office talking with couples? He doesn't understand me. She doesn't understand why this is important to me. Oh, then you can't accomplish anything. Because you're not getting each other. And it takes work to get somebody that you're not like. It does. It takes effort. Just ask Rusty. He confounded their language that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. They forgot their goal. When it says they left off to build the city, they dropped what they had in their mind. They had the power. God even said they had the power to do it. But they dropped it. Why? Agreement was gone. One became many, and they scattered. And that's where the Christian home is in most cases. Scattered. This person doing this person doing that, the kids going here, the kids going there. Nobody's on the same page. What do you think the enemy wants? Divide and conquer. It's one of the greatest tools of warfare. And we have fallen into it. So the Lord confounded their language, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. When we don't listen to each other and we don't come into agreement, it causes separation. Every time. We have to come into agreement. I may not like what he wants to do, but if it comes down to it, and I will stand my ground and he will stand his when we disagree on something. We will argue, if it will, as if in a court of law, our opinion, why we believe what we believe. But at the end of that conversation, we have to be on the same page. Because that's more important than being right or wrong. The greatest tools of agreement. Two things I want to concentrate on today. The greatest tools to get into agreement. One is finding a common goal. Where are we going? That's where we got today's message. Where are we going? Where is this marriage going? Where is this family going? If we don't know where we're going, we went to eat with some friends last night. I didn't know the address. I didn't know where we were going. We had a backseat driver that instructed us very well. And sometimes the men in front of us, because all the women were in one car and all the men were in another, sometimes we wondered where they were going. And if we don't, I didn't know where we were going. You know, I couldn't help Lisa drive. You know why? I couldn't instruct her. I could not help her. I was useless. I was the front seat. Nothing. Because I didn't know where we were going. And if you're in marriage and you don't know what your goal is, you know, every now and then you need to look at each other and say, where do we want to be in 10 years? What do we want home to look like in 10 years? Now, if you're on your first year of marriage, it's going to look way different in 10 years. But where are we going? Because if we don't know where we're going, the enemy can take us anywhere. We won't have any rules. We won't have any guidelines. We won't have any boundaries set for our relationship, for our life, for our children, for our marriage. It's going to be a free-for-all because we don't know where we're going. So if we're going to come into agreement, the first thing we've got to do is, what's our common goal? We have to agree on that. Our common goal is we're staying married. Period. No matter how hard I am or how fishy he is. You know you have a good marriage when you have to pick on your husband's fishing to find a fault. We have to have a common goal. Common goal is this. God's will is for this marriage to stay together. That's it. That's at the top of your pyramid. God's will is for your marriage to stay together. Now, if you're not married yet, you got options. Take those options. I mean, seriously. Because after I do, then you've got to put at the top of your pyramid, we're staying married. This is God's will is for us to be married. If you can't say it's God's will for us to be married, run. I mean, run. And if you're not sure because you're so caught up in your drama or hormones or whatever of your relationship, then you ask the people that love you the most. Ask the people that were there before that person came into your life and that you know will be there after they're gone from your life. You ask those people, is it God's will for me to be with this person? And you know, that's not who people want to ask, because they want to ask people who give them the answer they want. But you go to those friends that were there with you before you dated this person and who you know will be there after. Your mama, your daddy, if they're good godly parents, and you say, do you feel that it's... I challenge every one of you that are dating. Can I do this? Every one of you who are dating to approach a spiritual mentor in your life, preferably your parents if they fit that, and say, do you feel it is God's will for me to be with this person? Who'll do that? Raise your hands. I want a commitment. You're in a relationship, I'm going to stare at you till you raise your hands. So, anybody over here dating? Singles? Adults? You come talk to your Aunt Susan, sweetheart. I'll never lead you wrong. All right. Got to have a common goal. The number one thing is God for this marriage. If you're married, I can give you the answer to that. Unless you're being abused, God is for your marriage. You know, he gives us an example. I don't know if we'll have time because I'm really going longer on my notes than I thought. He gives us an example in the book of Ephesians chapter 5. And he uses Christ and the church and husband and wife in comparison to each other. And he calls the church beautiful, without spot or wrinkle. And you tell me if the church is without spot or wrinkle. So what I'm saying is Jesus went through some things and is going through some things with the church. He'll never leave her. Never. Never. So you're going to go through some friction. But God still chose to use Jesus and the church in comparison with the two of you. So just because you're going through things doesn't mean that you're out of the will of God. You might be right smack dab in the middle of the will of God, and that's why the enemy is after your home. Common goal. That's the first thing you got to have to be in agreement. The next thing that I have down in importance is you have to be able to communicate how to reach that goal. And I think this is where we get into trouble. And this is where we'll pick up next week if I'm here. I think we just communicate it wrong. Have you ever talked with somebody and you thought you didn't agree, but then the more you talked, you figured out you really were wanting the same end result? You're just going about it a different way. That happens a lot. So we've got to learn how to communicate, how to reach the goal. We want a good marriage? Yes. How do we get there? Well, you've got two different people with two different backgrounds. So the route is going to be different. I drive everywhere we go. When your husband gets up at 1:30 in the morning to go to work and you're going somewhere that night, you don't want him to drive. He's sleepy. So I do the driving. I'm in control of the car. You know, that's where I like to be. Control of the car. And I say, where do you want to go eat? Let's go pick up some catfish at Mackey's food truck. Okay, great. I start off, throw her in reverse, put it in drive. Everything goes smooth for just a little while. This is just like marriage. Everything goes smooth for just a little while. Oh, Mackey's. Oh, man, I'm hungry. I can't wait for those hush puppies. Oh, that goal's out there. And then I take a left when he thinks I should have taken a right. And suddenly, the passenger side comes to life. Why did you turn there? Well, I turned there because I don't know. It's the way I go. Well, I was thinking I would have gone the other way. Well, you're not driving. You love me, don't you? You're not driving. This is just like marriage. We have the same goal, Mackey's. That's the goal. The goal's never changed. But suddenly, when things aren't going in the direction that we think they should go, an argument comes on. Well, if you're not careful, you'll be headed home without Mackey's. You forgot all about the goal. You just want this argument to end. We'll just go home. I'm fixing you a sandwich. Honest to God, we've never done that, okay? We have done the whole route thing. I would have gone this way, but we've never forgot our food. I promise you. We've never forgot our food. But you see, it's just that simple. The goal never changed. But when somebody wanted to take a different route than us, then, the goal didn't even matter. Winning that argument mattered. Really? I just want to eat. You know, if you want to take Parkway, Parkway's great. If you want to take 64, 64's great. Does it really matter? Pick your battles. Pick your battles in a way that doesn't mess up your goal. Finding the common goal is the easy part. How to get there is the difficult part. Differences of opinion. Just remember, it's okay. It's okay. If somebody wants to go another way, it's okay. Let's talk about it. Let's put our GPS on it, see which way's faster. Just don't lose the goal because you differ on how to get there. Just don't lose the goal because you differ on how to get there. Now, if it's really, really important to you, let them know it's really, really important to you that this is the way, because you were, the way you were treated as a child has left you scarred. And it's something you've had to deal with, and so you don't want that form of punishment that reminds you of that used on your child. Explain that. Okay, what can we do instead of that? Because, when I can't do that. I can't walk that out because it brings up something in me that I can't do that, honey. Okay, what would be the next best option? Man, that's better. It's so much better. Just because you have a different route in mind, it's okay. I'm trying to skip some of this because, boy, this was a tough one for me. I'm driving, but I've had to learn that sometimes his route is better. I know, it's a moment, isn't it? It's on CD. Yeah, get him a copy. You'll want to replay that. I may be driving. Gentlemen, you are the head of your home. God has put you in the driver's seat. He's put you there. You are driving your home. If your family's going to be in church, it's probably because you make that decision. If somebody has to make a decision. And in the driving scenario, it's who's in the driver's seat. Gentlemen, you are in the driver's seat. And you can say, I'm driving. I'm driving. If you want to go your way, you should have drove. I'm the man of the house. God said I'm the man of the house. Well, you may get to where you're going, but your trip is not going to be pleasant. And you may eat that catfish in so many ways. But if we look at it and we are open, and this is a hard one for me, we have to be open that somebody else's idea may actually be better. But if I'm after the common goal, it's okay, because I win in the end. Common goal. Agreement is more important than right and wrong. That's a big statement. Harder to live out, but agreement is better than right and wrong. So when you're in discussion about your marriage, your finances, your children, your hobbies, your friends, or where to eat, just make sure that you keep communicating the goal. Keep communicating the goal. It'll keep you on the same page even if your opinions differ. And if you approach that person with the goal instead of your route being the emphasis, it changes everything. How we approach these discussions is so important. We'll talk about that in the weeks to come. Isaiah 46:10 says that God declares the end from the beginning. You know, God's brilliant. So maybe if we did things His way, we might look a little more brilliant. So God declares the end from the beginning. So when you start the discussion, state the end. If it's a serious, I mean, we've had a great time today, we've laughed a lot today, but if this is a serious discussion, a lot of emotions are involved, a lot of testosterone swirling around the room, you know, how we approach is everything. It's everything. How about if we declare the end from the beginning? I love you. We are going to find our way through this. Let's talk about our options. Oh man, that is just so much better than turn left. I'm not going to turn right. I'm going to turn left. I'm driving. No. I love you. And we're going to get through this, and we're going to get through it together. Let's sit down and talk about our options. We'll choose the best option for our family. Declare the end from the beginning. It's important. You know, prayer is God's way of stopping to ask for directions. Stop and ask for direction. Stop and pray. Stop and ask God. I think sometimes we just forget that it's not just the two of us who have an opinion in this. So let's pray about it. And if you can't get your mate to see your side and you truly feel like you're right, I love something Jimmy Evans, I've heard it on several of the videos I've watched this week. He said, you pray and you ask God to help you in that situation, but then you let God be the enforcer, not you. I thought, whoa, I've been the enforcer. Puts a totally different look on things. Pray about it. If it's something really that important to you, then pray about it. But after you pray about it, let God handle it. We know for sure He wants us in unity and not in division. We know for sure we're more powerful together than we are separate. Division makes us weak. Division makes us vulnerable to sin. It's setting us up for failure. It's a trick of the enemy. Save your harsh words for your enemy. Your real enemy. You know, don't sling harsh words around at each other. That your mate is not your enemy. The devil is your enemy. He's the one that has a target on your marriage and on your home. So you can get frustrated all day long at what you think is going on in your home, and you can sling some harsh words around. We're throwing punches at somebody that's on our team. Save our harsh words. I see that 5-minute sign, Bob Brock. Save your harsh words. Ephesians 6:12 says, we wrestle not against flesh and blood. We wrestle not. This fight in your marriage is a spiritual fight, not a physical fight. It's spiritual. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Home is a threat to the enemy's plot. Home is the foundation of society, and the reason society is going downhill is because marriage has gone downhill. We can't redefine marriage, guys. We can't redefine marriage. It has to be what God said it was, and that it's two people being married with one goal, staying in the will of God. And if we will do that, everything under it will come into play. If you can't agree on anything else, but it is the will of God for us to be married, then that's where we start. That's our focus. And I'm going to have to stop there because I'm out of town. Y'all can stand. I encourage you, because you are a body here, this week to intercede for the homes of your brothers and sisters in Christ. And sometimes we think just because people are Christians that the fight's not on. That's where the fight is on. Homes that aren't living for God are not a threat to the enemy. Yours is. So I encourage you this week, pray for the homes of your church. Wherever you go to church, pray for the marriages, intercede, and pray. And you'll take care of your own in that as well. Amen.
This has been Living Faith from the Russellville Christian Center. If you would like more teaching, you can visit our website at www.rccenter.org or download our app to your device. The Russellville Christian Center is located at 305 Lakefront Drive. If you would like to purchase a copy of this program, or if you would like more information, please call 479-968-7965.